Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at noon, Korea's ruling party has a lot of ground to make up ahead of next week's local elections, with a recent survey showing opposition candidates leading in 6 of the 7 most hotly contested mayoral and governor races. Last month's ferry disaster has pushed consumer sentiment in the nation to an 8-month low. Plus, Ukrainian forces launch airstrikes and a paratrooper assault on pro-Russian separatists to evict them from a key airport in the east of the country. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Tuesday, May 27th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Ju.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, with a little over 1 week to go before the June 4th local elections, the ruling Saenuri Party is facing an uphill battle in the face of public anger over the government's poor handling of last month's ferry disaster.
Opposition candidates are in the lead in 6 key races, even in one area where the ruling party usually enjoys strong support. Our correspondent Ji Myung-kil has more.
Candidates of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, or NPAD, and independent candidates are still out in front of their Saenuri Party rivals in 6 of 7 key battlegrounds in the June 4th local elections. That includes the races for mayor in the cities of Seoul and Incheon and for governor in the Gangwon-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces. An opinion poll conducted by Metrix has the incumbent mayor of Seoul, Park Won-soon, with a comfortable lead over his conservative rival, Chung Mong-joon. While in the race for Gyeonggi-do governor, the opposition candidate Kim Jin-pyo has made up ground against the ruling party's Nam Kyung-pil and now leads by 0.2 percentage points. The most surprising turn of events may just come from Busan. The ruling party has held a firm grip on the position of mayor in the southern port city for decades, but the recent polls show independent candidate Oh Go-don with a comfortable lead over the Saenuri Party candidate. With just over a week until election day, the ruling party candidate is in the lead in just one of the 7 key races, that being for mayor of the administrative city of Sejong, where Saenuri candidate Yoo Han-sik is up against his NPAD rival. Korea's local election results are considered a barometer of public sentiment for the ruling party and the government, which has borne the brunt of criticism in recent weeks over its handling of the April ferry disaster that left more than 300 people dead. Ji Myung-kil, Arirang News.
Lawmakers will elect the new speaker and vice speakers for the latter part of the 19th National Assembly here in Korea later today. It's customary for only one candidate from the ruling party to be nominated for the speaker position in Korean Parliament. And as 5-term lawmaker Chung Eui-hwa has already been chosen through an inter-party election in the Saenuri Party, he will most likely become the new leader of Parliament. As for one of the vice speakers, the ruling party has tapped 4-term lawmaker Chung Ga-byun, but the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has yet to decide who will fill the other vice speaker position. A bill which recently passed the U.S. lower house has ordered the Pentagon to examine ways of strengthening missile defense cooperation among Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel will have to report back to the Armed Services Committee no later than 6 months after the bill goes into effect. Our Na Hyun-kyung has this report.
The U.S. National Defense Authorization Act for the year 2015 passed the House of Representatives last week. It stipulates that the Secretary of Defense should assess and identify opportunities for boosting missile defense cooperation among South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. If enacted, the Pentagon will evaluate whether the 3 countries can share more military information, have their missile systems integrated, and conduct joint exercises. After picking up the information on Tuesday, experts in Seoul say Washington's move could face resistance as South Korea does not want to share military intelligence with Japan. The passing of the bill comes in line with Japanese media reporting that U.S. National Security Advisor Susan Rice discussed the matter with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The Yomiuri Shimbun report said Rice suggested immediately sharing information among the three nations if South Korean radar detects a North Korean missile launch. Attention now lies on how the South Korean government will react and if it will react to Washington's move, especially considering a U.S. Congressional Research Service report last year said Seoul would benefit the least given its close proximity to Pyongyang. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
North Korea and its nuclear program dominated talks on Monday between President Park Geun-hye and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. The president used the meeting to send an indirect message to Pyongyang. She said if the regime was serious about engaging in dialogue, it needs to stop threatening a new form of nuclear test and discontinue operations at its main nuclear facilities. Wang emphasized the need for all relevant countries to make joint efforts to restart the six-party nuclear talks and added that China has chosen South Korea to become a close cooperative partner in the region to maintain peace and stability. The two also talked about a future visit to South Korea by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Although a date has not been set, he will probably come next month. North Korea's chief delegate to the six-party nuclear talks, Lee Yong-ho, is confirmed to have met with former U.S. government officials in Mongolia. Seoul-based Yonhap News reports Lee met with former U.S. State Department official Joel Witt, as well as ex-CIA analyst Robert Carlin. Washington says the two, if they indeed made contact, were acting in their own capacity, and the U.S. government has a separate channel of communications with Pyongyang. The U.S. also made clear its message to North Korea remains the same, that Pyongyang needs to show a sincere attitude about giving up its nuclear ambitions. When asked about the matter, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Qin Gang told reporters that he wasn't aware of any meeting. Back here in South Korea, and President Park Geun-hye has weighed in on the manhunt for the practical owner of the sunken Seoul ferry, calling on officials to make sure Yoo Byung-an is brought to justice for causing the deadly accident. At a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, President Park also stressed the true causes behind the disaster must be uncovered and addressed so that another incident doesn't happen again. Referring to her pledged reforms to bolster national safety, the president ordered the cabinet to carry out the drive with a sense of duty. She then said the integrated emergency response system under the soon-to-be-established safety ministry should work at the highest level possible to save lives and prevent maritime accidents.
Now, the tragic Seoul ferry disaster happened almost 6 weeks ago, and its effects are still being felt throughout the nation, even on the economic front. With most people preferring to stay in and tone down their activities, consumer sentiment plunged to an 8-month low in May. Song Ji-sun reports.
The ferry disaster that killed some 300 people last month hit consumer sentiment hard, with fewer people feeling the urge to go shopping or eat out. The somber mood since the sinking prompted organizers to call off major festivals as well. The Bank of Korea said on Tuesday that the consumer sentiment index in May tumbled 3 points from April to 105. The index is a barometer of consumers' overall economic outlook. A reading above 100 means more consumers are optimistic about the future than those who are pessimistic. But the May figure is the lowest since September last year, when the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision to begin tapering its stimulus program sent jitters through emerging markets. Reflecting a sedate and cautious mood, money spent on travel and entertainment plunged in May, while medical spending edged up. Readings on current living conditions and future spending also shed 2 points compared to a month earlier. A separate survey conducted on small and mid-sized businesses showed 8 out of 10 business owners that they had been affected by the dropping consumer sentiment. They reported an average of 30% drop in revenues after the ferry disaster from the same period last year. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
A growing number of Korean women in their 30s are continuing on with their careers, with their number in the workforce reaching a record high last year. While this is a positive development in a traditionally patriarchal country like Korea, it comes with other consequences. Arirang News' Shin Se-min reports.
Korean women are perhaps the most active they've ever been in the workforce. The labor participation rate of women in their 30s hit its highest rate on record last year, according to the Statistics Korea. The percentage of women between the ages of 30 and 39 working was 57% in 2003. It's been on a steady rise in recent years, up about 1 percentage point each year since 2009, with the exception of 2008 when the global financial crisis hit. Researchers at the Korea Women's Development Institute attributes the growth of women in the workforce to more women going to university and putting off marriage, which has also had an effect on Korea's birth rate. The total number of newborn babies declined last year for the first time in 4 years. Government efforts have also played a role as they've been encouraging companies to provide more flexible working hours so that women can more easily juggle home and work life. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korea's main gateway, Incheon International Airport, has ranked the world best in airport service quality for the 9th straight year, and it has an aim of becoming a global aviation hub, but there is a problem. The number of international passengers transferring the airport is on the wane. Connie Kim has the details.
There are concerns Incheon International Airport may lose its reputation as a global aviation hub as the number of passengers making international transfers has been on the decline in recent months. The Transport Ministry says the number of transfer passengers dropped 15% since late August to 525,000 in February. The transfer rate is an important indicator of a hub airport, as other hub airports have a transfer rate of around 30%. Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport has a transfer rate of 42%. Germany's Frankfurt Airport rate is 40%, Singapore Changi Airport at 27%. Incheon trails behind at 17%. Incheon International Airport's transfer rate sits outside the global top 10. The Korean daily Joseonilbo attributes the decline to fewer Japanese and Chinese passengers passing through the airport. Some 100,000 Japanese and Chinese passengers have turned away from transferring from Korea's main airport. Japan increased its handling capacity to 50% last year, and China has begun launching direct flights to North America. Experts say Incheon International Airport needs to offer more convenient transfer routes, cut transfer times within the airport, and establish tourist attraction spots to boost passenger numbers. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And time for a look through the international headlines we're following this hour. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center.
Eunice, tensions are escalating even further in Ukraine. There's been an intense exchange of fire at an international airport there.
That's right, Mark. It's about 6:15 in the morning in Donetsk right now, and it's still unclear who the victor is, if there is one, in the battle between Kiev's forces and a reported hundreds of armed pro-Russian fighters struggling for that international airport. Donetsk's mayor has confirmed there are civilian casualties and is advising residents to stay indoors this morning. Reports say insurgents arrived in the area near the major airport in the early morning hours on Monday in trucks, and all flights were canceled. Gunfire broke out, and Kiev launched a military campaign in the air and on the ground. Explosions were also heard in the direction of that airport. Meanwhile, Ukraine's election commission has confirmed Petro Poroshenko as president-elect, and he said he would not negotiate with the rebels, underlining that the anti-terrorist operation should not last more than a few months. He said Monday integration with Europe will be his first priority and wants to begin talks with Moscow to end the insurgency. A train crash in northern India has killed at least 40 people and some 150 others are injured. Authorities say the express passenger train slammed into a parked freight train in Khalilabad in Uttar Pradesh state Monday, leaving 6 of the train cars derailed. Reuters reports among those in critical condition are the train's driver and assistant driver. Incoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was sworn in the same day, sent his condolences to the bereaved families. Nigeria's defense chief says its military has located the whereabouts of the more than 200 schoolgirls abducted last month, but expressed reluctance in using force to free them. Air Marshal Alex Bade told demonstrators that nobody should accuse the Nigerian military of not knowing what it is doing, adding that he does not want to kill the girls in the name of trying to get them back. He did not disclose a location. Earlier, the BBC had reported that the government backed out of a deal with Islamist militant group Boko Haram earlier this month to swap some of the girls for 100 jailed Boko Haram members. It isn't clear why that deal went south. And in the aftermath of Europe's so-called political earthquake, French President François Hollande has said the European Union has become too complex and remote and needs to change. Fringe parties critical of the EU had gained substantial ground in EU's parliamentary vote that wrapped on Sunday. In France, Hollande's Socialist Party was pushed into third place after the far-right National Front swept to victory with a preliminary 25% of the vote. And in Britain, the UK Independence Party, which has campaigned to pull out of the 28-nation bloc, is poised to become the country's ruling party for the first time. President Hollande, who has been a supporter of the EU, said the union had overcome the Eurozone crisis at the cost of disheartening the people and promised to reaffirm that the priority is growth, jobs, and investment when leaders meet on Tuesday. Speaking to reporters in the capital of Bangkok, Thailand's army chief issued a fresh warning against those protesting last week's coup d'etat, adding that the military would have no choice but to use force should protests flare up again. Small but daily demonstrations have been staged despite the junta's ban on political gatherings. General Prayut Chan-o-cha also promised to create a genuine democracy, saying he intends to hold elections as soon as possible, though he did not offer a time frame for that vote. And also on Monday, Thailand's monarchy officially endorsed the nation's military to run the country, appointing Prayut as head of a military council.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on Newsline at Noon with Mark Broom and Jin-pyo.
I'm Jin-pyo.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about... Now, the root cause of osteoporosis, a disease that weakens bones and makes them brittle, has long puzzled the medical community around the world. Until now, perhaps, anyway. Local researchers say they might have the answer, raising hopes for the development of new treatments. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
This is what the bones would look like in a patient diagnosed with osteoporosis, a bone disease characterized by impaired bone strength and reduced bone mass. Compared to a normal bone, the spaces in between make them vulnerable even to the slightest shock. Until now, there has been no specific treatment for osteoporosis, and the current medications come with many side effects. But there is new hope for sufferers as Korean researchers believe they've uncovered the core cause. This mouse does not have the gene NF1C, which is related to the formation of bones. It is much smaller in contrast to a normal mouse, and its teeth have not developed properly. A micro-CT scan showed that its bone density had been greatly reduced, just as it would in a patient diagnosed with osteoporosis.
In the mouse without NF1C, its osteoblastoma, or cells that form bones, increase, but its fat cells decrease.
The researchers found that when the mouse received a bone marrow stem cell transplant containing the gene, its bones developed just like they would in a normal mouse. The new discovery could pave way for the development of new medication or treatment for human patients.
We can use the genes in the form of cell therapy, but it is limited. Our next step is to find a new substance that can enhance the functions of the genes in order to develop new medication.
The findings have been published in the online edition of journal Stem Cell. Kim Jin-pyo, Arirang News.
Now, Buddhist temples in Korea have been opening themselves up to foreigners and visitors for years now to give them a sense of what it's like to live as a monk. Park Ji-won walks us through the latest additions to the Temple Stay program.
Since the Temple Stay program was first introduced in 2002, it's become one of Korea's most representative cultural programs, especially for foreign tourists who want a unique experience during their time here. With the popularity of the program rising, the number of people participating in the Temple Stay program has increased about 70 times over the last 12 years. And to meet the new demands of people living in this ever-changing society, the Jogae Order, the largest Buddhism sect in Korea, has revamped its Temple Stay program. A total of 13 pilot temples around the country will launch the new programs starting next month. They will focus on tapping into 4 themes: constellation, health, emptiness, and vision, and are composed of diverse new routines from walking meditation under the moon and music therapy to mountain climbing and yoga, each according to its theme. However, other key routines that have been staples of the Temple Stay program, like Zen meditation, eating the meals a monk might, and tea ceremonies, will remain unchanged.
Temple Stay program started when Korea hosted the World Cup in 2002. Many people have found comfort and happiness at temples. We are now trying to make the program more systematic based on the 4 new themes.
The Jogae Order has also launched a new line of stationery products inspired by the hundreds of traditional Korean patterns found on temples. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Good afternoon, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather updates. Now, the western parts of the region, including here in Seoul, we've been dealing with relatively high levels of toxic dust since early this morning. Well, thankfully, things are now clearing up, and although there could be lingering haze in some areas, most regions are basking under the plenty of sunshine. So the sunny and hot weather should continue today, with temperatures reaching the upper 20s to low 30s across the region, and it seems as though the summer-like conditions will persist for the remainder of the week. The high in Seoul will hover around 30 degrees Celsius, so it's going to get hotter each day from now on. Well, over in Gyeonggi-do, at the site of the ferry accidents, winds should be blowing at between 6 to 11 meters per second, and it will get stronger in the afternoon, and waves should be 1.5 meters at their highest, and the currents in the water should get stronger than yesterday today. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will rise to 28, that's 3 to 4 degrees hotter than yesterday, while Daegu tops out as super hot at 33, and Gwangju and Busan should climb to 29 and 26 later on under lots of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Dokdo should see a high of 27. Daejeon will reach 30, while Mount Gyeonggang tops out at 19. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world.
And those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Jinju and I will be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.